Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining on this call. This is our July edition of our webinar series, and we're glad to have you with us today. We know you've taken time out of your busy schedule to be with us. So we just wanted because we know that sometimes the network can be quite disruptive. So today we're talking about the technology-driven teacher. Every July since 2020, we've been looking at technology. So that's the theme for the month of July. Today, we're looking at the technology-driven teacher, leveraging on technology for innovation and problem solving in the classroom. And today's guest speaker is a distinguished personality. He is Mr. Oluwagbemileke Amo. But before we get into his very interesting profile, we'd just like to talk a little bit about the Educators Hangout, especially for those of you joining us for the first time. The Educators Hangout is a webinar series organized to help teachers worldwide become more effective and balanced in their personal and professional lives. It's a webinar series that seeks to provide continuous professional and personal development for teachers through free quality education as one of her social responsibility initiatives and contributions towards the United Nations SDG for quality education. The webinar series launched its first edition on Saturday, the 30th of May, 2020, and ever since has grown to over 200 participants in its database. Every month, our webinars host technocrats who are experts in their industry to speak to us on topics that are essential for the strategic positioning of teachers and school workers in the education sector. The Educators Hangout has had the privilege of hosting the Lagos State Honorable Commissioner for Education, Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo. Our webinars are attended by school workers, school owners, school leaders, teachers, healthcare workers, parents, and other important personalities. And it is an initiative of Adetokunbo Matilukuru, a Microsoft certified educator, a Microsoft innovative educator expert for the year 2020, a certified counselor and school leader with over 20 years of experience in the private education sector. Now, our guest speaker for today, like I said, is none other than Mr. Oluwagbemileke Amo. And I just have the honor of reading out his profile. Oluwagbemileke Amo, Leke Amo, as he's fondly called, is a passionate educator and author of the Smart Book for Smart Parents. After studying electronics engineering, he discovered his passion for teaching and pursued a career in education. He has a postgraduate certificate in education from the University of Nottingham, UK. Since 2010, when he started teaching professionally, he has directly influenced hundreds of children and their families with his novel ideas in ICT and inspirational teaching methodologies. Leke has several local and international awards for his contribution to education and technology. He currently serves as the Vice Principal, Strategy and Technology in Bloombridge Schools, Port Harcourt. He uses his blog, penspeakers.com as a platform to share remarkable lessons on parenting and education. When he's not teaching, writing, or learning something new, he's at home playing with his wife and their lovely daughter. I'm sorry, I added to his profile. All right, so with a warm welcome, you can use your emojis, you can clap, you can do anything you want. Just send out a virtual welcome on the chat box to Mr. Oluwagbemileke Amo. Mr. Oluwagbemileke Amo, you are warmly welcome to the July edition of the Educators Hangout. And we are already looking forward to this edition because we know that we are going to learn a lot and we're going to be inspired. So welcome once again. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Matulukuro. It is indeed a privilege to be here. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the emojis. I feel very humbled to be given or to be granted this opportunity to address the house today. Well, I guess the profile already does justice to who I am. My name is Leke Amo. There's very little to say about me until I become the president of Nigeria. Well, maybe we should start first with being Minister of Education. All right, it's a great privilege to be here at the Educators Hangout. I particularly love the name, Hangout, because it portrays the idea of us being in a relaxed mode. So I'd like everyone to, relax, feel free, be happy that you're here. There's a lot to learn. I believe there's a lot that I have to learn from everybody here. And there is no doubt that we will definitely be sharing ideas with one another. This is a topic that I am passionate about, and I am certain that everybody on this call has interacted with it or been impacted by it at one time or another. And I know definitely that as we continue in this conversation, some ideas will pop up in your mind. Please feel free to share those ideas. Let's make this as interactive as possible. I have prepared some slides that will require you to give me some responses. Definitely, I'm looking forward to getting your responses, so please do respond. Where there might be a need for you to unmute your microphone, definitely it's fine. Just raise your hand and I'll get feedback or interactions from you. But at the end of the entire session, there will definitely be opportunities for questions and answers. But thanks once again for having me here. So the topic that we're discussing today is being technology-driven, the technology teacher, but the technology-driven teacher, leveraging technology for innovation and problem solving in the classroom. Like I said earlier, it affects everybody. It affects even, I believe that on this call, we have some parents, we have some school owners. So how exactly do we leverage technology? I know that a lot of schools have put investments, put a lot of money into it. How exactly can we make sure that we are leveraging technology very well? School owners spend a lot of money in getting good facilities for their school, and then of course also hiring good hands to manage these technology infrastructure in the school. Sometimes we get return for our investment, sometimes we don't. And there's also the question of how exactly do we prepare children for the future of work, the future of life, generally knowing that many things are being driven by technology. And so this definitely is a topic that everybody should be concerned about, not just school owners, even teachers. How exactly are we teachers being skilled in delivering quality education for our children in our classroom? How are we certain that what we're teaching the children is what they need to know in preparation for the inevitable future? So all of these are things we're definitely going to be thinking about, deliberating upon, and then I'll share one or two experiences with you. But before we proceed, I'd like to ask a question first. So I have this image on the screen now, or I have 4 images on the screen now. You'll see it, I believe it's displaying right now. And I'd like you to answer this quick question. Okay, you can use the chat box to prepare your answers. Let me know very quickly what exactly, which of these 4 items portrays technology, A, B, C, or D. And of course, feel free to answer as elaborately as you want to. So very quickly, in about 30 to 45 seconds, I'd like to get responses from people. Which of these items on the screen portrays technology? Please, I'd like you to type in the chat box what your responses are, A, B, C, or D. Okay. A, B, C, D, or whatever else you want to type. Okay, somebody already says the 4 of them. Mr. Francis Adali, thank you. I appreciate your response. Any other person? Okay, thank you. Chika says A and C. Ifoma would say all of them. Progress over the years. All right, I like that addition. Okay, A, B, and C. All right, that's by Luatoi. All right, okay, just 10 more seconds and then I will proceed. Thank you. I see from Sefe, pardon me if I don't pronounce your name well. Sefe says A, B, and C. Okay. Okay, Modupa says A and C. Tumini Lawansin says A and C. Theophila says A and C. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. A, B, C, D. All right. Oh, Mrs. Itwan, good to see you here. All right. I believe this is beside it. All right. Says all the items. Okay. All right. I appreciate the responses and I particularly appreciate the addition made by Ifoma Samuel, who says this actually is an indication of progress over the years. To be honest, everything you see on the screen right now is an indication of the use of technology. I know that many people skipped B and D mainly because, I mean, in this modern times, this does not represent the use of technology. But guess what? If we backtrack to 40 to 50 years ago, the notepad and the pen you see before you right now is a fantastic, or was a fantastic invention and a development in the use of technology. And then if we push it back to maybe over 1,000 years ago, we definitely, a person who would see a wheelbarrow would marvel like, wow, this is awesome. I mean, you mean I can actually move goods, move products, these heavy things easily with the use of something that has a wheel and then a pulley or 2 handles that I can use and push things forward, rather than having to get a horse. Or, I mean, if I can't afford a horse, then, I mean, with this, I can easily just push things back and forth. You know, this definitely was, you know, a fantastic invention, you know, back in the days, and it amazed the people who used it. The item A, for instance, you know, many of us were excited about it just about 20 years ago. I mean, I know that I thought my father did not love me because he did not give me money to buy Nokia 3310 back then. You know, like, I mean, and the people who had Nokia 3310 then were the biggest of boys. Like, what? You have Nokia 3310? Ah, that's awesome. It was something the world welcomed, or maybe let's say this part of the world welcomed with open arms. Say, yes, this is the next best thing. We can't possibly imagine anything better than this. So it definitely solved a lot of problems for many people at the time that it was invented. And now what you're seeing there on option C is a self-driving car. And yeah, I know that a few of them exist at the moment, but in the future, this is definitely the future. Cars will drive themselves. People can actually sit on the driver's seat and then you can shuffle books or pages of books and you're moving to your destination without any concern whatsoever, you know, for traffic or for whatever is happening or passing around on the road, because you're certain that the car is sensitive enough to know when to stop and where to move forward. So all of these that you see actually portray technology. And it also brings to mind the need for us to define technology the way it is defined actually. According to Merriam-Webster, technology is actually the practical application of knowledge, especially in a particular area. So if you look at it very critically, and if you relate that in the context of education, how exactly can we say, what exactly can we define technology as, and how exactly can we say we are implementing technology properly in our classroom. But I believe that should be left to you as food for thought. Well, thank you for your contribution so far. Now, as a matter of fact, being technology driven is more about having a thought pattern than it is actually having mastery of technology tools. And I say that again, if you don't leave this session with anything, I need you to leave it with this. And I believe it is important that I lay this foundation before I go into some technical jargons. And to be honest, if this webinar was entirely about technical jargons, we definitely would not be able to exhaust 40 to 50 minutes of time on all the possibilities. I mean, there are many things we can bring into the classroom or into education from the IT space that would definitely be useful, but we won't have enough time to exhaust all the possibilities and all the options. However, if the basic foundation is laying, which is what I'm doing right now, we can take anything we need that will meet particular needs in our various environments. So please stay with me on this particular thought pattern. To be honest, in all my years of using, and I've been in education for over 12 years now, and of those 12 years, I can say that I concentrated mainly on technology. From perhaps after the second year, I realized the value of technology, and in about 10 years of using technology in education, I have come to this important conclusion, that being technology driven is not about learning technical skills. It's not just about the technical skills. While technical skills matter, but it is not just about that. It's actually about having a thought pattern. To illustrate that, I will share a personal experience with you. So join me in my past. What you see here, can somebody type it quickly in the chat box? What exactly is this thing that you see on the screen? What's that thing you see on the screen right now? I want to see how old some people are. I want to see how old some people. If you know the exact name, please type it. This thing you see on the screen right now, if you know the name, this thing mattered to me more than anything as a teenager. In fact, if anybody gave this to me, I would have adored and worshipped the person. Somebody says a laptop. See, so well, I'm glad that the person does not have a name. So I don't cast the person. And this person says, this thing is a laptop. Aha, the people who are savvy, they're already typing it. An organizer, you're right, Mr. Imo and Mr. Adali. Yes, this was an organizer. And it was, to be honest, the most important thing to me ever as a child. As a child, I wanted it more than anything. In fact, if you gave me a car, I'll probably ditch the car for an organizer. I wanted an organizer with all my heart. So there was one time somebody in church asked me, I was to clock 14 and said, oh, no, I was clock 13 and said, you're about to become a teenager. That's awesome. This is a milestone in your life. What would you like me to give to you as a birthday present? And I said, Ma, please, I need an organizer. She thought for a while. And then she said, you know what, I'll give you what I think you need. You don't really need an organizer. And what she did for me was she opened a bank account for me. Honestly, I didn't think she gave me what I really needed. But 2 years later, with my 20 naira here, 15 naira there, and all of that, I started putting in bank. I had about 15,000 naira in that bank account, and I felt very proud of myself. And I had enough to buy an organizer, but it was no longer necessary because of what? Because of what? All these slangs I say is spoiling my English. All right, because of what? Because I had waited too long for an organizer, so I had developed my own organizer. So I started using these jotters. I needed to organize myself. I had a problem. I wanted it fixed. The way that I think and I reason, I value meeting people. I value meeting people so much so that, I mean, a casual conversation, I believe, is probably the precursor to a lifelong relationship. And so every time I meet people, I like to collect their phone numbers, their addresses, and I like to journal, I just write things. So I start getting, whenever I attend people's wedding ceremonies, I make sure to leave, because back then Jota was the in thing. I mean, if you set up a wedding and you didn't share Jota, you didn't have a wedding. So I would collect Jotas, I'll collect address books. So you can see here some dates as far back as 2003. Guess what? I took this picture today for the sake of this presentation. So I still have these address books. This is an address book. What you see down here, 2004, a Shiloh Jota was also, and what you see here is a memo pad. I kept these things mainly because, or I had them back then mainly because I wanted to begin to journal some things, or sometimes an idea pops in my head and there is nothing around me to write it with. But I had this notepad in my pocket, I'll pull it out and quickly write down these ideas. If you want to take a spy into what it looks like inside, so this is the inside page, addresses of people, phone numbers, and all. So I still have all these people's phone numbers. Let me quickly switch screen before people start calling very vital VIPs that I have on my address book. Okay, but I kept these back then, mainly because I had a problem that I needed to solve. And in my own perspective, I believe that it was important for me to keep specific details of people. I believed in the importance of data. Some of the contacts I have in this place, when I call them up, I called a few up a couple of months ago, and they were shocked. Like, I can't believe you still have my number. I've been looking for you. I see your updates on Facebook. This is awesome, and all of that stuff. Now, it's sweet. It's fantastic. But if I had an organizer back then, I probably would have lost all of these, because the organizers back then were not connected to the cloud. But guess what? With the paper and the book, I was able to record data, and I still have access to that data today. So that helped me to solve a problem. Meanwhile, when I begin to think critically about, which also underscores the importance of not discarding paper or book or a memo pad and a jotter to say it is not an advancement in technology. It was an advancement. In fact, it met a better need than an organizer would have for me back then. Now, if you play that forward to today, and I begin to think about what exactly it means to be technology driven and what exactly it means for us to think about solving problems and innovating with the use of technology, I begin to think about what exactly it is that inspires people who have solved problems. Okay, somebody's asking if we're recording this session. I think we are. It's being recorded. All right. People who come up with fantastic ideas to solve problems in the world today. First of all, I look at the clock. And what amazes me particularly about the clock is who conceived the idea of the clock? No, just try and follow this thought pattern with me. I mean, how exactly did anybody think that it would be necessary to calibrate a whole day into 12 points and then make that spiral twice, and that gives us the information of 24 hours. How exactly did anybody get the information as to say that we need to have something that is round in shape? Well, in some places square perhaps, but it goes in a cyclical motion that tells us how to count time. Who invented the calendar? And how exactly did anybody conceive that idea that was so accurate as to say that it's now become something that is adopted all over the world? So when you think about technology and you're thinking about problem solving, what keeps coming to my mind is we are taking something that does not exist, presenting it into reality to solve a particular problem. Call that innovation. But trust me, it requires a lot of thinking, and it amazes me, especially, I mean, when I look at the clock, for instance, I keep thinking, of course, I know that the clock has evolved. There are many things we have done in the past to represent or to help us to track time. Some people look at the direction of the sun. Some people look at the moon. Some people have used very crazy things in the past. And I mean, now, perhaps even much more recently before the clock was the sundial, that the shadow that is cast. Yes, Ms. Lucker, you're right. Technology is beyond the use of tools. Yeah. Okay, so, the sundial, for instance, of course, the sundial had its limitations, and an improvement on the sundial was what led to the inspiration behind the clock. So if anybody is to ask me, I am guessing, I don't have any research, I've not dug any research, but I want to believe that the sundial particularly was what led to the invention of the clock. All right. And then the analog clock was made, and then somebody else thought, you know what, we need to be more accurate than what the analog presents. Let's make it digital. And so, I mean, these things keep evolving and evolving and evolving. And guess what? The digital was no longer satisfactory. And some people thought, you know what? It is rather too shallow to have a wristwatch, especially like this one I'm wearing in my hand. It is mono functional. Let us make something that can also track our blood pressure, monitor our heart rate, give us vital information. We can pick phone calls with it and all of that. And these things keep evolving and evolving and evolving. Why? Mainly because people are trying to solve a problem. And I want to believe, and that particularly is what I believe every teacher should leave here with. Everything follows a specific thought process. And what's that thought process? First of all, Come on, change slide, oh man of God. All right, first of all, people identify a problem. After identifying that problem, they study the problem. I mean, I'm amazed at how much time people devote to understanding why something is wrong. And then in understanding it, they're able to interpret what causes it. And then after identifying the cause of it, then they begin to explore possible solutions. Albert Einstein said, I'm not the smartest person on earth. I simply spend more time on a problem than most people do. So they stay on the problem and begin to ask questions, very vital questions. What exactly is the cause of this problem? How exactly can I begin to solve this problem? And then they take actions, begin to test run. After exploring possible, after identifying the cause, they begin to explore possible solutions, and then they test run it. And then, of course, in test running it, every time that I come up with a solution to a problem, I tell myself, this is not the full solution. This particular solution can create a new problem. And I need to find how I can solve the problem that this solution has caused. So I begin to fine-tune my processes. And then in fine-tuning my processes, I'm able to perfect the solution to that problem. This, I believe, is the most important 6-step thought process that every teacher must go through in our classrooms, in innovating with the use of technology or innovating with anything whatsoever. And then, of course, in solving the problems that we have in our classrooms. So what exactly does it mean to be technology driven? It's simple, taking risk so as to solve problems. As far as I'm concerned, this is what it means to be technology driven. It is not just the acquisition of technical skills. Yes, we can learn any software whatsoever that we want to learn, but it is of no use to anybody whatsoever if you can't solve a problem with it. Which is why I have a lot of issues with people that are garnering certificates, but they are not able to prove anything with those certificates. There are several Microsoft certified educators that have not for 1 minute done anything with the 21st century learning design techniques that they were taught in the MC course. There are several Google certified educators today who have not implemented anything in Google Sheets. Now, why exactly are we learning these things if we're not going to put them to use? It is important to know and I think it's first of all starts with being blindsided, not being clear about, or not being passionate enough to identify the problems that we have in our classroom. And trust me, there are problems every single day. If you have 25 children in your class, you have 25 problems. In fact, it's very likely that you have 50 problems, because some children will come with more problems than one person can bear. So why exactly should a child leave your class with, if we are moving into a new session now, your child will be, your children are coming in fresh on a clean slate, and then they're leaving with nothing other than a certificate or some results to prove that they attended your class. I always saw my job as a teacher beyond just one who is teaching children academic subjects. I parented my children every single class, and I found it very hard to even call them my students or my pupils. I called them my children. And many parents saw that I, for want of better words, own these children and I own their problems. Okay, so it is important for me, every single tool. So for me, as far as I'm concerned, technical skills in technology was simply a tool for me to achieve the problem I'm trying to solve. It is not a necessary prerequisite for me to be successful as a teacher. So the use of technology made it easier for me to achieve many of the things that I'm able to achieve with the children in my classroom. And currently in a leadership position, it is helping me to achieve what I'm able to achieve in leading teachers to achieve what they are achieving in the classroom. So don't think that I am here in this moment to teach you, oh, you need to begin to take this course, take that course. There is no point taking those courses if, first of all, you don't have an eye for catching problems, you don't have a heart for solving those problems, you don't have a willingness to take risk, be wrong, be corrected. There are many things I've implemented in my classroom that I took queries for. Some of my heads of schools are here. They have queried me for some of my innovative ideas that caused trouble, sometimes for parents, sometimes for the school. But I mean, it did not stop me from continuing to innovate. They understood the purpose behind it, but guess what? The problem was already caused, and then we moved on. All right, so we have to keep asking questions. How exactly can I solve a problem, and what tools can I use? But guess what? The technology, what I love the most about technology is it is boundless. It allows you to begin to imagine and dream anything whatsoever. It is not as restricting as anything but technology. Okay, so I think it was very important to lay that foundation. All right, so my advice to everybody here, simple: turn your classroom into a mini laboratory. When I took the postgraduate certificate in education course with the University of Nottingham, I left with, I mean, my head was full. I felt very bad when my access to the Moodle course was taken off, because I kept going back there to learn something new, read books, and I began to implement one research. So I made my classroom a research atmosphere, especially because I wanted to track students' understanding. I needed to see what exactly it is that they are learning in my class, and what the effect of certain teaching methodologies was creating in their understanding and in their learning. So trust me, if you're a teacher here, you're a school owner here, this is something you need to take back with you. Let every single classroom, your classroom activity, let your classroom be a mini laboratory. Feel free to take some risk, be creative. Some parents may not support some of your novel ideas, but guess what? In time, they will buy in. And if you're a parent here, please encourage your school to be innovative. Encourage your school owners and the teachers. You know, when they come up with new ideas, don't be so pessimistic. Sometimes, especially with the advancement in technology, especially Corona, when I was in Corona, when we began to implement something, some parents were very anti-technology. You know what? They will say things like, which technology built me? I learned with book writing and reading, and I became who I am today. So I beg, all of these laptops and things like that, they are distracting my children. Granted, yes, they are distracting our children. We know fully well that the things that we had back then, while we didn't have access to technology, they were not complete. There were certain limitations. It helped us, but there are many of our classmates that did not help. Yet, technology is here. It is helping many children, yet it is causing distractions for others. Rather than us telling ourselves we need to go back to what was, I think we need to ask ourselves, what can we do with what we have now, improve on it so that it doesn't distract our children? And yes, I have a few tips and ideas that I can share with parents on this. But first of all, please, for every teacher here, please feel free to experiment with ideas in your classroom. Turn your classroom to a mini laboratory. Have an eye for spotting problems and feet for exploring solutions. Next, and for every teacher who's here, what exactly do you stand to gain from being technology driven? I think the first thing and the most important thing is yourself. What is in it for you? And that's self-development. And that self-development, I will break it into two aspects. There's a professional development and there's the personal development. Many of the things that I implemented in my classroom that sometimes put me in trouble, but most of them worked very well for me. They improved me professionally. They led to my being promoted to a leadership position. So yeah, that helped me professionally, but it also helped me beyond the shores of the classroom, because I opened my blog, penspeakers.com, on the premise of, educational technology, and I began to share fantastic ideas. There are several teachers all around the world, some in China, that interact with my blog, and they are blown away by some of the ideas that I share. And of course, I've taken it beyond just the classroom to share many, many other ideas. So in the same vein, if you are developing yourself in use of technology as a teacher, definitely you're going to be exploring the world and you're going to solve a problem on a global scale. Next, you'll be improving children's learning. I think it's so rewarding to see that some of the things you put in the children, you are getting returns on it. I mean, nothing satisfies me more than to see that a child moved from 69% on a termly basis to 78. It is an improvement, because we know fully well that as children, or as learning grows, as term 1 becomes term 2, becomes term 3, becomes the next year, things are more difficult, not easier. So if a child therefore improves from a particular grade point to a higher grade point, knowing fully well that he or she has interacted with more difficult work, I salute it. It is awesome. I am amazed when some parents contact me to say some children I taught 8 years ago are getting a first class in the university. I'm saying, wow, it is awesome. So definitely it is rewarding for every teacher who sees that some of the innovative ideas you've put in your work in terms of use of technology is improving children's learning. I think you should give yourself a pat on the back. And then of course, it also improves parent satisfaction. Parents would storm doors to put their children in your classroom. Parents would lobby to say, I want my child to be in your classroom. All right, I had that experience year in, year out. Of course, not because I was that phenomenal a teacher, but I was simply a teacher who took risks, not because I was young, even though that contributed. But I know several other teachers who are older than I who are fantastic especially in exploring and in owning what children need to learn. And that has helped, the rate at which parents are quick to say, I need my child in this class. And then of course, parents will be very happy to contact, to relate with you even beyond the shores of the classroom, because they know that your involvement with the children is not just for the sake of academic excellence, it is also because you want them to progress beyond the four walls of the school environment. Now, I have a few tips I can share with teachers here. Very simple things, simplistic things that teachers can do with the use of technology. Of course, I don't want to go into exhaustive because this particular class or this webinar cannot take care of that. But I just thought, what are the few simple things that teachers need to do, but many of them are not doing? First of all, is a reminder. I use the reminder app on my phone a lot. In fact, I started using the reminder app on my phone before phones became smart. I started setting reminders on, all these Nokia small phones. They just blare, and yeah, it's very helpful for me. Even though back then they had very limited memory, it was very limiting for me. But I used them. Now that they have limitless in the memories on their on smartphones, I am very happy. I mean, the world is my limit. Okay, so in the same vein, teachers need to set reminders. Now I see that many teachers are very forgetful, and I can't blame you. Work is very stressful. Yes, we can be very forgetful. But one area where you can actually use reminders very well, apart from, sometimes I am at home, I'm preparing a lesson, and then I feel, oh, I don't want to put a particular content on my slide, but I know that there's something I need to do for a specific child in my classroom to differentiate that child's learning. I set it on my reminder for the exact time that I have that lesson, so that my reminder blares, and then I make sure to implement it. Because sometimes you would have taught a class and you go, oh, I wanted to mention this concept, I wanted to do this thing, and I forgot. Because that's one. But a very quick tip. Some parents, and I don't know if a few parents, because I shared this on my broadcast, and I don't know if maybe a few parents are here, so they will know my trick. But some parents are amazed at how children who have left my class 6, 7 years ago, I still remember their birthdays and I send them happy birthday messages. And so parents say, Mr. Leke, I don't know how you do it. It's not like I have a fantastic big head memory that keeps every child's birthday. I have reminders set on my phone. And I have always done that even while they were in class, and after leaving my class, I still do it. And it makes the rate at which parents are connected to me improve. And in the same vein, even students, that's why I'm still in touch with many of them today, because I keep their birthdays. So even if I don't talk to them in a year, at least I talk to them twice, on their birthdays and on their parents' birthdays. Even their wedding anniversaries, those I remember to start their wedding anniversary, I message them, so happy wedding anniversary and all of that. And if you're very close to me, I can give you a phone call. So this is something I think every teacher should do, all right? It's a very fantastic use of technology that will improve the way parents, love you and connect with you. And if you're a school owner here, I think it's something you should involve your entire school in. All right, have it set somewhere, have a database for parents' birthdays and their anniversaries. Wish them well on these fantastic days, and definitely they'll feel more connected to the school. All right, screen timers, that's another thing. Yeah. I know that many times we teachers like to relax and all of that stuff. And sometimes we can be very distracted playing Candy Crush or playing certain games on our phones for a long time, and then valuable time is spent doing nothing. But if you set a particular time on for certain apps or a screen timer on your phone, so my phone needs to go blank at a particular time. I think every smartphone should have this. I mean, every smartphone since Samsung S4 has had it, okay? Or Techno should have it. Set it, there are app timers there. You can limit a particular time that you spend on certain apps. I use it also for my 3-year-old daughter. She's very passionate about Khan Academy Kids. She can go on and on doing whatever she's doing on Khan Academy Kids. And sometimes we're quite concerned about how much time a 3-year-old is spending on the screen. So we just set a timer to it that nothing more than 30 minutes, and then the app just goes off, regardless what it is she's doing on it. So parents, you can use this as well in your school. It helps teachers to be disciplined. It also helps parents to teach children self-discipline. Voice memo is something I use a lot, and I think data is so important that many times we don't capture data in our classrooms on a daily basis. And sometimes teachers, please don't undervalue your experiences, the things that you are experiencing on a daily basis in your class. Data. When I wrote my book, The Smart Book for Smart Parents, I spent more than a year preparing for that book. And what I simply did was I captured data in voice memos. So sometimes I feel very lazy to type or to write, so I'll just do a voice recording on my phone, and then, just expressing how tiresome my day has been or expressing what I think, parents should do better in parenting their children, or what I think I would do better as a parent with my child. Now, all of these things, I put them together on a particular Telegram group, or a voice memo app, depending on what I had handy with me, or depending on my mood at that time. And then I would play them back and then began to type them out. Okay, these are the ideas, these are the ideas. Now, in the same vein, teachers, you can do this, to capture specific certain moments in your class, all right? Or capture your particular feeling or particular ideas that pop in your head, especially sometimes when you're saying these things in a voice, you are better able to express your thoughts. Your thoughts flow better than when you're having to write it down. Because when you're talking to someone, you tend to be smarter, right? Yeah, it happens to me a lot when I'm talking to someone, even if I know very little about the subject. But by the time I open my mouth, I just see that, ideas begin to come from different places. Don't undervalue such moments. And guess what? You have this on your phone. Every single phone has a voice memo. You can do that on your phone. If you don't have a voice memo, go to Telegram, do voice notes, or go to WhatsApp. Create a group for yourself, or add a friend, remove that friend. It is not only you on that group. I do that a lot. I remove people, I will add a friend, remove the friend, it's just me on that group, and I begin to do voice notes and all of that on that WhatsApp group to store data that I know I will need. And if anything happens to my phone, thanks to WhatsApp and Telegram that they back these things up, if I change my phone, I still have access to these things later because I can download them later. Okay, so these are simple ideas that teachers can use in your day-to-day environment to improve the way that you work. More advanced things teachers can do is spreadsheets. Please, I know that when I started, or when I heard about spreadsheets as a young teacher, I was not interested in spreadsheets. Teachers would often interact with PowerPoint and Word, or maybe slides and Word, presentation slides and Word documents. But teachers, believe me, learn spreadsheets and begin to compute your children's results on spreadsheets. When you begin to learn it and you begin to use advanced, or you learn further, how exactly can you make visualizations on spreadsheets? How exactly can you study trends on spreadsheets? You will notice certain patterns of children's learning, and you'll be able to put stop gaps in place before things go too far. I felt very pained sometimes when some parents would say that my child came into this school and was doing average and left average. And they felt after spending so much money, there's very little to say. My child simply just passed through school, but nothing new has been added. So if you were using spreadsheets in computing your students' results, and if particularly, which is another thing I noticed that happens in many schools, there is a disconnect between transition from one class to another. A child comes in from one class to a new class, and the data from the previous class is not being computed. Now, if we keep track of students' data, your child comes in year 1 and is now in year 3, we need to have a graph to tell us per child, how has this child improved? What is this child's performance like? What exactly can we begin to put in place to ensure that for the next year that this child comes in, we make sure that there's an improvement. Now, spreadsheets would help you do this. And I think it is important for teachers and school owners to begin to, enforce the importance of learning spreadsheets and some little data analytics and data science techniques. And then, of course, teachers, you should always ask yourself, what app can solve this problem for me? I have a problem, or I have something I want to achieve. What app can do it? I put Jibble in bracket because I got here in Port Harcourt, in Bloomberg schools, and then one of the things we realized was some people will sign in whatever time they feel like signing in. I think it happens almost everywhere. You come in at 7:39 and you sign in 7:34. And then we felt we need to solve this problem. We need, something more accurate. Of course, a few companies that approached, and companies go around to say, buy certain buy certain biometric devices, buy some things to sign in and to clock in and all of that stuff. This can be very expensive and all that. But then somebody just asked the question, isn't there an app that can do this? The person just said it in passing, and I just said, you know what, that's true. So I just assigned 2 teachers, very tech-savvy teachers. I said, you know what, explore it, please go online, go on Google, explore and find, and they found Jibble. They found Jibble and began to explore Jibble. We had the 1-month free trial for Jibble, and it was mind-blowing what we could do with Jibble. All right. So, it was while exploring that we saw that there are even several other apps that have something similar. And with Jibble, you don't even have to install anything special in your environment. Just use the app. And then, of course, if you have paid editions, you will definitely be able to have better features. But I mean, if it's just basic clock in, clock out, I mean, basic features can definitely help. All right. So there are several apps that can solve many problems. That's what happens today. Okay. So next thing I want to quickly say is we can also leverage technology to create certain cultures in our environment and to create certain habits in children. And I would hone in on habits, first of all, especially in the classroom environment, because there are several things that children can do in our classrooms or in our school that definitely is a result of habits. And, you know, these things can be very limiting. And honestly, I think perhaps the most innovative benefit of technology in an educational context is the ability to break certain poor habits, replacing those habits with new ones, and then developing predetermined school ethos by capturing culture. Because trust me, your school ethos is simply a function of habits. Your school ethos or your culture in your school organization is an aggregate of the habits of every single person in that organization. That's what it is. Okay. So if you want to build a particular culture or you want to build a new habit in the children in your class, or a habit in or a culture for your staff in your organization, then you need to begin to track data. Data is important. What exactly are the things you want to break? Note them, identify them. Have a whole school retreat. If it is in your classroom, have a one-on-one conversation with the child to say, these are certain habits that I have observed that you have, and these things need to stop. Okay, and then note it down. Note when that child does these things that are not right, and then let the child know that there are consequences for it. I will go into details later, but I know there are many things. There are several things that we can do with technology in our class and of course in our school that can help us to break this. I'll share my own personal example much later, which is actually not far from now and towards the end of this presentation. But I can say that even children's poor performance, their poor academic performance is actually, if you drill it really down, it is actually the result of certain habits that they have that is counterproductive to their academics or to their study or to their performance generally. All right. I know that it is not all the same. So some children have learning difficulties. Yes, that's a different case entirely. But some children that you know, certainly there's no learning difficulty whatsoever, but they're still underperforming. It is actually a habit or certain habits that are affecting their ability to perform. Okay. And what can help us is data. So I would have liked several contributions, but I think I have just about 5 minutes more. I would have liked us to tell me more, but I just listed a few things that some children do in our class. But if you do have some time, you can type in the chat box. What are some of the things that many children do wrong in our classrooms? Some of them can sleep in class. Some of them can decide not to do their homework. Some of them have an untidy work area. But feel free, you can type as many other things that you know children do wrong in the classroom. Okay, if I can spot a few, I know that there are at least 10 chat boxes and things. Okay, all right, all right, okay, all right. Okay, chat during lesson. Thank you very much. Whoever iPhone is. Okay, so children would chat during lesson. There are many things, many bad habits that children have in the classroom. Okay, now I would share very quickly what I did to break some of these bad habits that children have. And I learned this. Okay, I see it. In fact, some of us did that back then. We'll just sleep in these snacks under our desk. Now just be chewing or cover our mouth like this. And all of that. Okay, playing with toys during classes. Thank you. This is probably for an LES class. Reading novels. They do that too. Teachers teaching, they have it tucked under their table. Restlessness, okay, was also mentioned. Now, there are many things, okay, distracting themselves and others. Yeah, thank you very much, Felicia. Okay, so there are many things children do in our classrooms, and sometimes even beyond the classroom, that is counterproductive to their learning. Okay, and what I did. So I learned this actually from a parent, and to be honest, this was a very difficult parent. Even the parent knows he was difficult. And sometimes my heads of schools give me these very difficult parents, perhaps because they know that I have a way of handling parents. Okay, so this difficult parent told me something that you see, my child, I have noticed that my child has improved, but I think there's something you can do better. I think you need to track what she does wrong. And that was all he said. Just track what she does wrong and catch her doing something wrong and let her know she's doing it wrong and let there be consequences for it. And in my head, I'm like, you know how we teachers can feel that why would parents drop their burden on us? Granted, I know that I'm your child's teacher. I think my focus should be your child's academic progress. But when it comes to behavioral issues and all that, it comes from home, for goodness sakes. I mean, your child is I mean, I can't think of anyone right now, but I mean, your child certainly has certain, or your child is rude to others, your child, and you expect that to be my problem. I mean, if you can't solve it at home, why should I now be the one to be burdened with it? So yeah, we have that perspective, but guess what? I thought differently about what this man said. And I felt, okay, somebody says being absent-minded and use of computer can be a distraction. Yeah. Okay. Now, I just thought, let me take this further. So I resorted to my memo pads again. I felt, okay, if I could give this child a memo pad, and on that memo pad, I would write on a weekly basis 3 things I want her to do right. And these 3 things, I intentionally chose them to negate what she does wrong. So for instance, that child particularly had a problem with sitting down. She would stand unnecessarily in the classroom. She would just stand unnecessarily in the classroom, or just like you said, distract others, move around and all that. So I required her to sit down, to sit throughout a lesson, and she would only get up at the end of the lesson. It was one of the things I wrote. I wrote some other positive things that she should do, maybe read a book a week, review it with me, all of that stuff. Things I knew that would definitely, 2 things, negate what she does wrong and also help her improve in one thing. Now, I put these things down and then I drew it into a table, 3 goals. I drew a table Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Every time she does it right, I'll put a tick. Every time she does it wrong, I put an X. Now, I kept doing that. And then at the end of the week, she and I would sit down and do a review to say, okay, fine, you were supposed to get 15 points because it's, 3 points a day and 5 days a week. You're supposed to get 15 points. How exactly did you perform? At the beginning, the child was scratching between 5 over 15, 6 over 15, 7 over 15. Now, what exactly did I do? I was tracking data. Sometimes I skipped it. Sometimes I ignored it. Sometimes I didn't even see it. But every single time that I was present in class that I identified her doing something right, I gave a tick. Identified her doing something wrong, I gave an X. And then it gave me enough data at the end of a particular period. Maybe not entirely accurate, but it is better than nothing at all. And then we did a review. But guess what? In the space of 1 term, this child mastered everything. And she began to ask for, she herself began to adjust new goals because she saw that it was working. And that's the same thing that we can begin to do with technology, because there are other apps that can do that. You don't even have to use a memo pad anymore. There's an app I stumbled upon called Habitica that can help you do that. And you can also have collaborators with Google Keeps. Google Keeps has that. Google Keeps is free. Habitica, you probably have to pay a paid version. But Google Keeps is free. You can do that as well. Just checklist. And then you can add the parent as a collaborator. Their personal email is a collaborator. Parents can see it right there in real time, how exactly the child is performing. You are tracking data on a daily basis on how the child is supposed to do certain things in the classroom. And then you're giving fantastic feedback. When children see, many times, misbehavior continue in children because nobody is giving them feedback. But when children see that somebody is giving them feedback, their behavior changes. And it will definitely affect everything we want to affect, including the academics and their prospects for the future. And I think this is what technology brings before the table, because you're solving a problem with it, not because you're just using it or you're just learning to use technology for the sake of using technology. Okay. Next, and this is about the 14th slide, and I have just 17 slides here. Now, I'd like to address some things with parents. Why exactly should any parents support technology drive in schools? Parents, you can check the statistics. Over 95% of the jobs that will exist by 2030, that's less than, how many years? This is 2022, less than 8 years from now. By 2030, will rely on technology. That includes medicine. It will rely on technology. So it will become necessary for anybody who's studying medicine in school today to begin to learn something in IT, a coding or a programming language of some sort. It will become necessary today for anybody who's doing Bolt or Uber to begin to think about how he or she can begin to learn an IT skill, because when self-driving cars become the norm everywhere, I will no longer need a driver. Now, every single thing that you and I will be doing in technology will in our workplace today will rely on IT. So if a school is thinking ahead now to implement certain technology techniques, and a parent therefore thinks, you know what, let us do things the way things were done before because we still turned out right. To be honest, I think you need to rethink that module. Yes, like somebody just dropped in the chat box, technology can be distracting, but you know what? One thing I discovered, and somebody just, there was a research, I didn't have enough time to find it, but there was research I stumbled upon when I was writing an article some time ago, where somebody said that several games that many people think are distractions have actually helped to develop certain skills in neurosurgeon, or some skills that neurosurgeons would need to be able to carry certain operations successfully. Computer games. You will see your child playing this game and you think your child is blowing his or her life away, but it's probably helpful. But yet, I'm not saying that teachers should not begin to allow children to play those games in their classrooms. No, there's a time for everything. So you know definitely that you're not supposed to do certain things at certain times. I mean, like I said, we give my children, I give my daughter an app to play with on her phone, and we set a timer to it. So it's the same thing, time it. Set certain times for certain things to be done. There's a time for everything and a place for everything on earth. And that's simply the basic thing that I'd like to draw from this. All right, on the final note, I'd like to ask a question to everybody here. Based on everything that I have said so far, please type in the chat box. Which do you think now comes first? Is it acquiring certain technical skills or identifying a problem to solve? Please type it quickly on the chat box. Which do you think comes first? Yeah, somebody just typed me a direct message to say it is about regulation. Yes, I agree with you, Ibinosa. It is about regulation and timing. Okay, somebody says problem to solve. B, 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 B. Okay, B, 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 B. Thank you very much. Identifying a problem to solve. Thank you, thank you. I appreciate this. That this indicates that several people are following. Thank you. Okay, actually, it is a chicken and egg situation. It is a chicken and egg situation. Okay, it is a chicken and egg situation. So don't underestimate the importance of acquiring technical skills, because yes, sometimes you will acquire technical skills for certain things that are not useful for you at the moment. For instance, I started learning about the use of spreadsheets, but as far back as 2016, but I didn't use spreadsheets until I didn't see the awesomeness of spreadsheets until I attained leadership position in 2022. 2021. Okay, last year. Sounds like a long time ago. Okay, but guess what? If I now attain leadership position, and that's when I now started learning the use of spreadsheets, I think my progress in leadership would have been slower. So yeah, you need to learn certain things at some times that will then help you solve problems. Sometimes you will see the problem first, and then you now go and learn the technical skill. Or while you're solving the problem, you're learning the technical skill. All right, but please, I'm simply saying, if before now you prioritized learning technical skills over being able to identify problems and solve problems, you are shooting yourself on the foot. It is important that you are alert to problems and then you're proactive in solving these problems. And then, of course, as you're doing that, please learn technical skills. And I may not be able to tell you what technical skill to learn, because trust me, they are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. A dime a dozen. So many technical skills you can learn. I particularly right now, I am passionate about data science or data analytics. If you asked me 4 years ago, I don't think I was quite interested in it. But why? Because I see what it can do for education. I see that it is awesome. If you ask me 4 years from now, I might have moved on to something else, maybe cybersecurity. But guess what? I believe it is necessary for me to, in this particular phase of my life, to learn it. Okay, and I'm learning it. Am I using it right now? Maybe on a small scale. Am I going to use it on a big scale? Yes, I picture that I'll use it on a big scale. Okay, all right. And then finally, did I say finally for this slide? No, this is the real finally. Okay, my advice is this: learn wide. Don't stop yourself. Learn wide. Learn one thing about everything and everything about one thing. Okay, learn wide in terms of use of technology. Learn wide. If anybody wants to engage me on the subject of IT right now, I can say at least one thing about every form of IT, every form of emerging technology. I'm learning a bit about Python. I'm not so much interested in Python, learning a bit about R programming, learning a bit about, SQL, several databases and all of that. I am not keen on it. I can say a few things about UI UX. I can say a few things about augmented reality, virtual reality. I can say a few things about all of these things. I'm not so keen on all of them, but there's a particular one, data analytics. I can tell you quite a lot because I'm learning it right now. I am soaking myself in it. So learn everything about one thing and everything about one thing. Learn wide, expose yourself to a lot of things. You never can tell which one will become your core later. Be observant and concerned. It's not just enough to notice a problem. All right. Don't be like the people who would be taking a selfie when somebody is sinking in a pool of water. All right. It is important that you take action, be observant and concerned, and then you act on your concern. And of course, while taking action, it becomes necessary to learn some more because your action will begin to help you realize that you have skills lacking in some areas. Learn some more, learn to collaborate, learn to leverage on other people's skills, and then have fun while at it. As you can see me having fun very close to a pond here. This was taken during NYC Maiduguri. So I've always been used to taking risk. So that's all I have to present right now. I have spent about 51 minutes. My apologies, Mrs. Matulukuru, but I hope it has been very beneficial to everyone. Just to close up with, you can get my book, The Smart Book for Smart Parents, from my blog, penspeakers.com/smartbook, or you can message me. This is my social media handle at Amaoleke, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere. I'm at Amaoleke. And you can always message me on Pens because if you have my phone number, you can always get in touch as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Oluwagbemileke Amo. Please, can we give him a round of applause? Please, can we give him a round of applause? Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.